Let me ask you here, Franco, about the two bits of information that the government has been giving to sell the tax that I feel are confusing to Canadians, and I'm hoping you have the numbers on this. Number one, most Canadians are better off with the tax than without it. Now, that on the surface sounds ridiculous, but the government touts this rebate and says, no, most Canadians are getting more in the rebate than they're paying. So that's claim one. Claim two, that all of the experts agree the carbon tax is not a significant driver of inflation. It's just one, itsy bitsy tiny teeny little fraction of inflation and not a significant driver. Go.
All right. I'm getting the football and I'm going for a run, ladies and gentlemen. So on the rebates, wrong, magic math. Okay. Now, I think I heard the Prime Minister say something along the lines that the premiers are spreading misinformation. Well, there is a bunch of misinformation, but that is coming from Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, his cabinet ministers, and his Liberal MPs. Because the Parliamentary Budget Officer, the government's own independent, nonpartisan budget watchdog, shows that the carbon tax will cost the average Canadian family up to $911 more a year than what they get back in rebates. Hundreds of dollars more a year than what they get back in rebates. But let's just set that data aside for a second, okay? Let's just think about it logically. They charge a carbon tax. Then they charge their sales tax on top of the carbon tax. That tax on tax alone cost Canadians about $500 million this year. And then it cost the government about $200 million to hire the bureaucrats to administer the carbon tax. So there is no way that a government can impose a carbon tax, charge its sales tax on top of the carbon tax, skim a bunch of money off the top to pay for a bunch of bureaucrats, and somehow make the vast majority of Canadians better off with rebates. That is impossible. But Andrew, only a couple months ago, by his own actions, Trudeau proved that the carbon tax does make life more expensive. Remember, he was surrounded by his Atlantic caucus, and he announced relief by taking the carbon tax off of furnace oil. Now, why would he do that? Because he knows that the carbon tax does make life more expensive. Now, Andrew, that's the rebate shenanigans busted. Let's talk about this letter from The Economist. Well, you hear economists talk about efficiency all the time. Well, Andrew, it doesn't sound that efficient to me to make it more expensive for Canadian parents to fuel up their cars to get their kids to soccer practice with a tax that won't solve a global issue. It doesn't sound efficient to me to make it more expensive for Canadian seniors to stay warm during the winter months with a tax that won't solve a global issue. It doesn't sound very efficient to me to make it more expensive for a Canadian single mom to put food on the table with a tax that won't solve a global issue. And not only that, you know who Trudeau should actually be listening to? The people he's supposed to represent, Canadians. And the vast majority of Canadians do not support his carbon tax hikes. So he should listen to Canadians, and at the very least, he should cancel the carbon tax hike.